This week on Most Craved, we're in Austin at South by Southwest. We've got reviews of Trainwreck, Furious 7, and some other favorites.
Hey there, Star Wars spin-offs, Rogue One. Ooh, yeah.
Hey, I'm Silas Lesnick with ComingSoon.net.
And I'm William Bibbiani with CraveOnline. Hey, we're at South by Southwest and you're not. So while we're seeing all these really cool movies we're going to talk about a little later in the episode, we want to talk about the big news story this week. It is Star Wars? Star Wars. There's going to be like 2 more Star Wars. One of them is going to be Episode 8, which we kind of saw coming, and Rian Johnson's going to direct that, which we kind of saw coming.
We did learn that it's coming sooner than we thought. It's not going to be December. It's going to be a summer release, so it's just a year and a half after Episode 7 is hitting.
Great. So, if you thought there weren't enough Star Wars, there'll be more.
Enough Star Wars.
Yeah, that remains to be seen. But there's also, we got a title for the spinoff. It's called Star Wars Rogue One. Neat, I guess.
I feel bad talking about Star Wars without Jenna here.
She's the biggest Star Wars fan of our entire group, but she couldn't be here at South by Southwest. I'm sure she's seething right now watching this. Like, tell them all that, here's why Rogue One is important. Here's why it's the most exciting thing ever. And I honestly am just like, all right.
You want to hear my theory?
Sure.
My theory is we heard the rumors that it was like a heist to steal the Death Star plans.
Yeah.
We know the Rogue Squadron from Empire Strikes Back.
Sure.
What if the Rogue Squadron is just an elite force for special missions, and that's the group that's getting the Death Star plans, and we have Felicity Jones as a pilot who theoretically will go out and go undercover to do that. It sounds awesome, that's it.
Does that mean that like Biggs Darklighter is going to be in the film? Did he have a sweet mustache? I remember having a Freddie Mercury mustache. Sweet. So Sacha Baron Cohen is going to be Sacha Baron Cohen is going to be Biggs Darklighter. We broke that here because if you want a sweet mustache in your movie, you got to get him. We really don't have that much more to go on other than title, which sounds neat, I guess. I don't know.
And we'll be talking about it a lot more.
We will never stop talking about Star Wars if Disney has their way. So just keep coming back if you enjoy that. But we'll be back with more Star Wars forever. Star Wars hurt me. Like, most of the Star Wars movies have sucked. Here's what I don't understand.
This is going to be a longer conversation. Okay? Let's get back to Austin.
All right, fine. All right, we're at Austin, Texas, and South by Southwest is a great place for a lot of independent movies, but it's also a place where a lot of the big studios like to premiere their bigger blockbuster movies, some of their crazier genre films in front of an audience that's really receptive to that kind of thing. Last night, Silas and I got to see Furious 7. We were the first public audience that ever got to see it, and I think we're a little split on it. It seemed like you're a big fan, and I liked parts of it, but I'm not. And I loved 5 and 6, but it didn't really do it for me.
I wouldn't say I was a big fan. Okay. Honestly, I thought this was on par with 6.
Okay.
I thought what James Wan brings to the equation is a lot more cars actually getting smashed, which is kind of fun.
That's fair. I'll give you that. Yeah.
There's a lot more destruction, and I like that change. I would have liked even more of it. The thing I loved about Fast 5, which is that and Tokyo Drift, are probably my 2 favorites.
Okay.
Justin Lin has these incredible long shots, so you see everything, and it feels like it's really happening. There's a lot of fast cutting, and
doesn't necessarily do all the stunts a lot of favors. I think in this, there's still cool stuff in it though. Some of the ideas for the action sequences are really huge and broad and crazy, and I had a lot of fun watching it. For me, what made this film kind of less than a lot of the previous films in the franchise, is definitely not the worst one, is the plot is actually kind of lame. If you remember at the end, I'm not going to spoil it, but if you remember at the end of the last movie, we saw Jason Statham show up, and he's going to be the big bad guy in Fast and Furious 7. Cool. And then he shows up, has the best introduction I've ever seen for a villain in any movie, does 2 cool things like right off the bat, and then the entire cast gets distracted by fighting Djimon Hounsou for most of the movie. We don't know what Djimon Hounsou wants, really, other than a MacGuffin. We don't know who he is. There's no emotional connection to anything. It's just they're off on a bunch of missions that we don't care about, but look cool.
Well, I don't mind that at all. I feel like it's like a racing game, video game level loading, and it's like, now we're in the desert, now we're on a mountaintop. The plot's ludicrous.
I'm okay with ludicrous as long as I have a reason to care about what's happening. And I didn't feel like the stuff I cared about is off on the sideline. I think that's my problem.
This is also a point where the franchise has gotten, it's fully aware of how silly it is.
Sure.
And the one person in it that is so good at that is Dwayne Johnson,
Yes.
who knows he's in a very silly movie.
He's in the right movie. He's so great. He's so great. But he's also not in the movie as much as you might think.
Well, I think that's sort of. I think ever since he came in 5, it's been a like. He's not the star. He's a secondary character, and he's going to have some great moments.
Yeah.
But
You want a soupçon of Dwayne Johnson. You want a soupçon. Anyway, listen, it's definitely a fun popcorn movie, but I think it's got a lot of problems, and I think, unfortunately, the untimely death of Paul Walker forced them to make some editing decisions that I found really distracting throughout the film. But we don't want to ruin it for you. It's coming out in a couple of weeks. Silas, big recommendation?
I honestly think any fan of the franchise is going to have a lot of fun. It may not be as mind-blowing as you're hoping, and lower your expectations a tiny bit, but it's seriously
Lower your
fun.
expectations, always a good recommendation. Me, I think you're going to have some fun with it, but I honestly think like a year or two down the line, you might look back at it and say that really isn't the best one in the franchise by far. Another big film that opened is Trainwreck. This is a new film from Judd Apatow, written and starring by Amy Schumer. Wonderful comedian, has a great show on Comedy Central. She is very funny in this, and this is kind of just like her throwing the gauntlet down to see if she can be a big-time movie star. And although I think the movie, like a lot of Judd Apatow movies, gets a little raggedy, it's certainly a lot longer than it needs to be and doesn't all work, I think she proves her point. I think she's great.
This is the one that I did love. I can't remember the last time I saw a romantic comedy and identified with it that emotionally, and also felt that it was just funny. I think the laugh per minute ratio, again, can't remember the last time I had laughing that much at something on the big screen.
Well, I like a good romantic comedy, and in fact, it maybe didn't help that I saw an even better romantic comedy at Sundance called Sleeping with Other People that I felt did what Trainwreck is trying to do, but a lot better. But even so, I gotta say, this movie is very funny. I just think there's a lot of stuff in it that just feels kind of thrown in, like it really could have parceled this down a little bit, have been a bit more focused on her character and the plot, and you would have still had all the humor, you would have said all the jokes, but none of the extraneous stuff that made me feel a little like it was a little tedious. I don't know. It's definitely not bad. It's definitely not bad. I think it's a good movie. I just don't think it's amazing. It didn't blow my mind. I'm telling you why.
I honestly, it did kind of blow my mind. I was so impressed with Amy Schumer. I will see her in absolutely anything from now on.
Sure.
Honestly, in some ways reminded me of Chris Pratt being in Guardians of the Galaxy and just this burst of charisma in an unexpected role. I thought she was fantastic.
I still think she'd make a great Squirrel Girl. Real fast, before we gotta go, we don't want to ignore all the independent films that are at South by Southwest just because two big things played here. Is there one film in particular you saw at South by Southwest that you really want people to keep an eye out for at home?
There's a couple. The one I guess I'm going to go with is Life in Color. Is a woman named Catherine Emer. She wrote, directed, and starred in it, and I didn't even realize when I watched it. I just thought it was like, this is a really enjoyable indie movie about actual people. And then when I found out she did all of that on a micro budget, I'm anxious to see what she does next.
That's exciting. For me, it's a film called Nina Forever. This is a wonderful horror movie, but not quite a horror movie, about a guy whose girlfriend died about a year ago. He's trying to move on, and then every time he has sex with someone else, the corpse of his dead girlfriend hellraisers up out of hell, basically, to just lay there next to them and just sort of look at them and judge them and say mean things. And it's, again, she doesn't try to kill anyone, but it's grotesque and morbid and kind of scary and has a lot to do with dealing with our baggage in a very clever way. I think it's a very original film, and you should definitely check it out when it's at home video or in theaters. So that is it for Most Craved. Check us out on Twitter, right about here. Here-ish somewhere. And we'll be back next week with more entertainment stuff.
Back in the studio. Thank you.